Have you ever wondered how Mateus Asato creates such beautiful music and delivers such unique and interesting ideas and techniques in his compositions? Well, many of us have been there where we've listened to one of his tracks and thought, man, I wish I wrote that. So in today's video, I'm going to try and enlighten you a little bit on how you can at least write some music in the style of Mateus Asato. And to help you be able to do this, I'm going to be doing an analysis on one of his short pieces of music or musical ideas called Another Day, Another Idea. And the reason that I've chose this piece is because it's very simple to understand and comprehend what's happening and going on. And it's just overall a really good demonstration of how a simple idea and a simple chord progression can be transformed into something much more melodic. So anyways, throughout this video, not only are you going to learn how to play this piece of music, but I'm also going to be stripping it apart and giving you a deeper understanding into why it sounds good and essentially how you might be able to create something similar using these technical and theoretical ideas. Just before we begin this video, I would like to let you know that the tab for this particular piece of music, among many other Mateus Asato tunes, is available on my Patreon, which is linked in the description below. And if you would like to gain a greater understanding or a more in-depth understanding of some of the ideas and theory that I'm going to explain in this video, then I strongly encourage that you check out my website, which is also linked in the description below. With that said, let's crack on with the piece. This piece of music consists of two parts. We have part A and part B, and within part B there are two variations which we'll get to. But let's start off with part A, which we could consider the main melody or the chorus section of this piece. And by the way, this is all fingerstyle, so you won't need any picks. I'll play it up to speed to begin with, and then we'll break it down, see what's going on, and then I'll slow it down and all of that good stuff. So here we go, part A. So this particular section is built from a series of spread voiced triads. In their basic form, we have four chords. We have E minor, up to G, down to C, down to A minor. And through Roman numeral analysis, we'll find out that we are in the key of E minor. We have the 1 chord, the 3 chord, the 6 chord, and then the minor 4 chord here. Okay, which are all diatonic to the key of E minor. Now to make these spread voice triads, we're going to get rid of these bar chord shapes, and we're going to play the root followed by the 5th and then the 3rd. Okay, in that particular order. And then Mateus adds this open G string in the middle to give it a bit more color. So we have the last chord's a little bit different. Very interesting, a little bit dark. That there is actually an A minor with a second in the end, so an A minor add 2 or add 9. So let me slow this down even farther and we'll see what's going on and how he'll blend these chords together. So we start off with a bit of percussion in there. So that there is really nice. That there is the distance of a 6th. We have the 3rd finger 10th fret on the D and then little finger 10th fret on the B. And this is a beautiful dyad or double stop to play. Mateus plays these all the time because they just sound beautiful and they really broaden the melody farther than it would without that double stop. I mean, without that double stop it would sound like, you know, rather than just sounds a lot more interesting. And that particular double stop leads us really nicely into the next triad, which is of course our G major. And then we're going down. Once again, more 6ths. And that leads us nicely into our C major. And then so that's not a 6th, it's still a double stop, 2 notes here. We'll get the 7th fret on the D, 1st fret on the 5, and that's the distance of a 3rd, or more specifically a minor 3rd. And we have a slide, a quick slide, before coming back down. minor, add 2 or add 9. And then we have this last little riff on the end to loop us back into the beginning. So let me play all of that slowly for you. That leads us really nicely into part B. So there's not much more to elaborate on within part A there. We've just simply got a really nice chord progression which sounds fantastic, and to make it sound a little bit more colorful and emotive, Mateus takes advantage of the use of spread voice triads rather than the full bar chord forms, and then adds a little bit of color by using the open G string between each of those spread voice triads, which just brightens each of those chords a lot more than it would without that particular note. Open strings are always welcome in chord types like these, or in fact any chord for that matter, because they just have a really nice ring to them, which makes the chord sound a lot more colorful than it would without them. So that's something to consider in itself. If you're playing a beautiful chord voicing, can you include an open string within that? Now, besides the chord voicings, as I explained, Mateus uses plenty of sixths within that particular melody to get him from one chord to the next as smoothly and melodically as possible. Now let's move on to part B. So the first variation of part B sounds like this. Okay, so we have 3 chords there in particular, which would be C major, D major, and then B minor, which in the key of E minor is your 6 chord, your 7 chord, and your 5 chord. And your 5 chord naturally wants to go somewhere, so this is a really nice way to keep the song moving. Let's now explore what's happening within the melody over these chords. I'll break it down by playing just one chord at a time and explain what's going on. So we begin with this is a very interesting selection of notes because it continually encourages movement, and let me explain why. We're starting off with, of course, the root note, the 5th, which is the open string, adds a really nice ring to the chord, and then we've got this pull off at the bottom, this double stop. We start off with this kind of power chord shape. We've got the 5th degree and the 2nd degree. It's interesting to note that we're pulling off from the 2nd degree to the 7th degree of that C major chord, which encourages movement. If we rather pull off from the 2nd degree to the 1st degree, check this out. It doesn't sound nearly as interesting. You hear it just doesn't really want to go anywhere. It really doesn't sound that interesting at all. Whereas if we pull off to that 7, it wants to move farther. These are all triad notes. We've got the major 3rd and the 5th, finishing on the 2nd degree, which again encourages more movement since it's a tension note. And that 2nd degree leads real nicely onto the next chord in the progression, or the next melody even, which is. So you see how the melody starts on the next scale degree over that D major chord, which is actually the 2nd degree of D major, sliding up to the 3rd, and then we've got the 4th, which is very interesting because the 3rd and the 4th are so close. There's a bit of a nasty clash, but they sound wonderful together and deliver a really wonderful suspended sound. That E string at the bottom is also the 2nd degree, which gives it even more tension and suspense to what's coming next. Beautiful chord voicing and suits this song really nicely. Now the end of that melody there leads us on really nicely into the next chord, since we land on the minor 3rd of B minor, which is a really safe place to be. The only tension note really there is that flat 6. But that leads really nicely again into the next chord because we have a note in common there. That's now the 5th degree of the C major. So let me go ahead and play that particular section slowly for you now. Now for the second variation of this part B, or verse if you like, we start off exactly the same, except we come down here to, so let me explain what's going on there. Of course, we're starting off with C major, which is your 6th chord, coming down to G, which is your 3, and then we've got B minor 7 there, which once again is your 5 chord in the key of E minor, and therefore wants the song to move on to the next section. So let me slow that second part down for you. We have this melody over the G major. So it's a really nice, simple ascending run, really. We have the root note to the 2nd to the 3rd, and then we've got the 5th and the 6th, which is the open strings. And by including those open strings, as I previously mentioned, it makes the melody and the chords sound a lot brighter and has a really nice ring to it. And then we have, so super simple there. We're hammering on to the flat 7 of B minor 7. Just got a couple open strings there. And then finishing off by bouncing between the root note and the minor 3rd. Super simple. So again, slowly, that second variation of part B. And then that leads you back into variation 1. Variation 2, and then that, since that's the 5 chord, leads us real nicely back into the 1 chord, starting with an open E this time rather than the 7th fret, and we're going to play the same melody as we previously did. However, this time, at the very end of the song, there are 3 chords to finish this off. We have some inversions of C major to D major, and then just a straight E minor chord. So that's the second inversion of G major. I really love these voicings since they have a lot of warmth to them. Starting off on the 5th degree. Same shape here on the 5th fret of the E string, and obviously the last chord is just a straight E minor campfire style chord. And as you can hear, it has a lot more of an interesting sound than if we were to use our open chords. You know, that sounds quite generic over. Definitely has a lot more of a warmer feel to it. And that concludes the entire piece. And just before I sign out, once again, I invite you to come and check out my website, which is linked in the description below, where you'll find heaps of useful instructional guitar related content. I hope to see you there. Until next time, I will see you in the next video.